Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us in episode 1 of our Beyond the Bridge webinar series. In this episode, we will discuss the developments around the use of electronic bills of lading. More specifically, examine the two key concepts of reliability and interoperability. I am Archit, counsel in the shipping disputes practice in London. Joining me are my colleagues Andrew Hutchian, partner in the London office, and Kimri Chiang, partner in the Singapore office. We are delighted to welcome Professor Miriam Golby, Professor of Shipping, Insurance and Commercial Law at Queen Mary University of London. Miriam contributed to UNCITRAL's Working Group 4 on Electronic Commerce, which developed the Model Law on Electronic Transferable Records, or the MLETR, adopted in 2017. She also participated in Working Group 6 when UNCITRAL negotiated the Negotiable Cargo Documents Convention between 2022 and 25. Mariam also undertook a part-time secondment to the Law Commission of England and Wales to support its electronic trade documents project. She is, of course, the author of Electronic Documents in Maritime Trade, Law and Practice, and is currently working on its third edition. Please also join me in welcoming Kay, Assistant Director in Digital Utilities at the Infocom Media Development Authority, or IMDA, in Singapore, who are the owners of Digital Trade Document Framework Trade Trust. Kay's career includes working at Bolero, where he set up their Singapore office, and at Hapag-Lloyd, where he led 12 subsidiaries in designing various e-business initiatives and functionalities. In addition to his role at IMDA, Kay is also currently on the working committee for the ICC DGC standards on digital trade reliability. At this juncture, Kay, if you can say a few words about Trade Trust, that would be great.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you very much, Arkit, for the kind introduction, and to Watson, Farley and Williams for this opportunity to speak to such an august audience. As introduced, I work at Singapore's Infocom Media Development Authority, which is the government agency tasked with architecting Singapore's digitalization, both socially and economically. Under the economic portfolio that champions digital innovation amongst enterprises, the team I'm with at IMDA focuses on digital utilities that provide foundational capabilities to businesses so that they may prosper in the digital age. One of the projects that we have been spearheading is Trade Trust, which is essentially a framework that enables digitalization of the two types of documents in trade: normal and transferable. Of course, we aren't just here to change documents from paper to digital. One can already do that with common formats like PDF and silo platform solutions. Rather, we seek to democratize digitalization across the trade ecosystem by making electronic documents portable across the various systems used by the myriad of trade players everywhere. This is accomplished through a technology framework we call Trade Trust that we've baked into software components that are open sourced and provided free for anyone to use, whether in Singapore or not. So basically, any tech solution provider can take these free software components and implement them into their solutions to create and manage electronic documentation, even the transferable type that is then portable across other solutions that have already done so. Now, this enables the users of these systems to be assured of those documents' authenticity and provenance, even when they are created and managed before elsewhere. For you tech geeks out there, this is achieved through an approach that uses a combination of decentralized technologies such as non-fungible token and smart contracts, combined with more conventional techniques like cryptographic hashing. Back to you, Arkit.
Thank you, Kay. That was very helpful. Now, The use for digital trade was identified quite early on. If you could just move the slide, Sophie. Thank you. EBLs were first trialed in the 1980s. The first commercial electronic systems were used in the 1990s. We have had substantial digital technological advancements, most notably blockchain in the late 2000s, and smart contracts have gained traction over the past, say, 15 years or so. Unfortunately, the adoption of EBLs has not been at the rate or the level that one would have expected. But recent developments may finally provide the required momentum for fuller adoption. In terms of efficiency and security, the benefits are undeniable. It's broadly accepted that digitalized trade could reduce huge costs every year. There have been industry commitments pledging to accelerate the adoption of EBLs. Next slide, please, Sophie. BIMCO launched its 25 by 25 pledge. The Digital Container Shipping Association, or the DCSA, ocean carrier members have committed to 100% adoption of an EBL based on DCSA standards by 2030. On the current adoption, as we understand it, in the container industry, about 12.8% of bills of lading being currently issued are electronic bills of ladings, which is an increase from 2% in 2022. So we are getting there. However, to achieve these goals, we need to overcome both legal and practical hurdles. One challenge in the adoption of EBLs is the involvement of multiple parties in a shipping transaction. There will be a shipper who will approach a ship owner. The BL may be to order or will name a consignee. If the BL is to order, it may be endorsed one or more time to buyers. In many cases, a seller's bank and a buyer's bank will also be involved to finance and take security over the BL. There will also be customs and port authorities involved. So for a transaction to be fully digitalized, one would need the cooperation and the involvement of all the parties involved. This is also where the issue of interoperability between systems and platforms comes in. Now, concerns about up-to-date, uniform international laws in relation to recognizing transferable electronic trade documents as being equivalent to paper documents are being addressed. Next slide, please, Sophie. UNCITRAL adopted the model law MLETR to assist countries in reforming laws. Amongst other things, most MLETR compatible legislations require the use of a reliable system in order to perform the required functions with respect to electronic trade documents. Now, technical standards and legal standardization of terms can assist to add more certainty to such concepts. But as has been seen, development can be slow, where solutions aim to be technology agnostic. And this is where the issue of reliability comes in. Now, let us bring in our panelists at this stage. I'll start off with Miriam. Miriam, are there any developments in this sector that you would like to mention?
Thank you for having me, and thank you very much for your very kind introduction. There's a few developments in the legal space which are worth mentioning. Essentially, the main thing to bear in mind is that the MLETR is becoming the standard for legislating for electronic documents of title. So it's an essential point of reference when it comes to talking about electronic bills of lading. The other two international instruments covering this ground in the transport sector are the Rotterdam Rules 2008, which, as you said, needs 20 ratifications to come into force, and the brand new Negotiable Cargo Documents Convention adopted by UNCITRAL this year, which requires 10 ratifications to come into force. We've all heard of the Rotterdam Rules. They were meant to replace the Hague, Hague-Visby, and Hamburg rules. The convention took many years and intensive work, first by the CMI and then by UNCITRAL to finalize. And it did obtain a considerable number of signatures, but only 5 ratifications so far, although there is a talk of renewed interest in the Rotterdam rules. The NCD Convention was intended to enable the issue of documents of title for non-maritime cargoes, to facilitate their use as collateral. Both conventions have provisions on electronic documents. The provisions in the NCD Convention are closely modelled on those in the MLETR, and they don't introduce any new requirements. So it's good news for currently operative systems. The ones in the Rotterdam rules, the provisions in the Rotterdam rules are more specific to transport documents than the ones in the MLETR, which covers also other transferable documents, as we all know. But the Rotterdam Rules provisions are compatible with the MLETR provisions, which are more detailed and more prescriptive than the Rotterdam Rules provisions. So if there is compliance with the MLETR, there should also be compliance with the Rotterdam Rules. Provisions modelled on the MLETR also appear in the Commonwealth Model Law on Digital Trade. This was adopted in October this year. So the MLETR is emerging as the international standard for legislating in this field, and it remains a really important point of reference.
Thank you, Miriam. That was very helpful. Kay, moving on. I know that we will be discussing the ICC DGC's Digital Trade Reliability Assessment tool in the next section. But are there any other recent developments that you would like to mention at this stage?
Well, thank you, Archit. Well, I am encouraged by the news of the revised China Maritime Code adopting parts of the MLETR, and that this will come into effect 1st May 2026. However, it must be noted that, amongst other things, the criteria for identifying reliable methods or transaction systems will be separately developed by their cyberspace and transport authorities. Other than that, I guess, as the industry knows, since February 2010, and if I could have the next slide. Yeah, so as the industry knows, since February 2010, IGPNI clubs, International Group of PNI Clubs rules provide that liabilities arising in respect of the carriage of cargo under paperless trading systems are covered, provided that the system has first been approved by the group. This earliest available approval process, seen on the bottommost row, is meant for systems which not only permit compliant e-bills. Here, compliant e-bills are those subject to a governing law which gives legal recognition to them as equivalent to paper bills of lading. Then in February 2024, they added a streamlined approval process, which is for systems which only permit compliant e-bills. And then most recently, in February 2025, they introduced a deemed approval process, which is also for systems which only permit compliant e-bills, but which further reduces criteria to be fulfilled to 2, making it more accessible for technology solutions to be approved. In fact, 3 systems have been approved via this route since its availability just 9 months ago, adding to the 15 approved via the other routes.
Thank you, Kay. I would now invite Andrew to discuss the issue of reliability, please.
Hi, thank you, Archit. Okay, so reliable systems. One of the requirements of the MLETR, as Archit mentioned, and consequently that means the same for Singapore's ETA and the UK's Electronic Trade Documents Act, is the need to use a reliable system to achieve certain prescribed results. We can see this requirement in Section 2 of the Electronic Trade Documents Act, which we'll come to in a moment. It may help, though, if in the understanding of the reliability requirement, if we first recap how this requirement became part of the Electronic Trade Documents Act. So the reliability concept was used in the ICC's GUIDEC, that's General Usage for International Digitally Assured Commerce, in 1997. It introduced, GUIDEC was launched to promote trust of cross-border online transactions. It required certificates for certifiers such as notaries to use only technologically reliable systems and processes when issuing these certificates, which verify the identity of persons using a digital signature. Reliability was used as a term which didn't require specification of technology and focused on achieving outcomes. In 2003, the USA, in the USA, Section 7-106 of the Universal Commercial Code, the UCC, was amended to state in relation to electronic documents of title, a person has control of an electronic document of title if a system employed for evidencing the transfer of interest in the document reliably establishes that person as a person to which the electronic document was issued or transferred. Importantly, in 2017, UNCITRAL also incorporated a reliability standard into the MLETR. So the concept is not new. In the UK, one of the reasons that the Law Commission had advocated for its inclusion in our Electronic Trade Documents Act, despite many consultees opposing it, although it would have to be said there was strong support from the Law Society and P&I clubs, is that the reliability requirement was seen as strengthening trust in electronic trade documents. Also, stakeholders evidently felt satisfying these threshold the threshold requirements was achievable, as there were no objections to any of the reliability requirements, which we will see in section 2. So back to the Electronic Trade Document Act. Sophie, can we get up the next slide, please? So this is section 2, subsection 2 of the Electronic Trade Document Act. You can see from the highlighted sections the information, and that's the electronic information, which it contains the same as would be in a paper document, constitutes an electronic trade document for the purposes of this act if a reliable system is used. And then you have these 5 outcomes. So, you know, it's identifying a document can be distinguished from the copy, protect a document against authorized alteration, secure that it's not possible for more than one person to exercise control, and so forth. So what it actually requires to establish reliability is set out in section 2.5 of the Act. So this is section 2.5. So you can see from the highlighted sections, when determining whether a system is reliable for the purposes of subsection 2, the following matters may be taken into account, and these include, and then you see these 6 or 7 factors here. So you've got rules of the system that may apply to its operation, and then you've got 2 or 3 requirements about security, and then E, you've got the regularity of an extent of an audit, and G, you've got the provisions of any voluntary scheme or industry standard. So those are the reliability provisions in our Electronic Trade Document Act. So I've got some questions for the panel. Next slide, please. So Miriam, we've set out the requirements. How does the service provider go about complying with these requirements to get a reliable system?
Thank you, Andrew. It's basically it's very much a factual exercise to determine to what extent the system performs as it's supposed to. So it's important to remember there has always been a reliability requirement in English law, which formed part of the law of evidence, a requirement that computer evidence be reliable. The difference between this requirement and what we have in the ETDA is that the evidentiary reliability requirement applies ex post. That is, after the system has already been deployed and a dispute has already arisen. At that point is when you start to assess whether the system is reliable. With the enactment of the ETDA, a non-evidentiary ex-ante reliability requirement was introduced. So this is a requirement that has to be fulfilled before a computer system can be used for the purposes set out in the Act. So this may be a new approach in English law, but as you already mentioned, Andrew, elsewhere this concept is of much longer standing. So what can we learn from both the way that this requirement has been understood, where it is already established, and from what we already know about system reliability from English law, for example, the Horizon judgment within the Bates and Post Office litigation. Essentially, system providers need to be able to show that the computer system is functioning correctly. So this entails a number of things. First of all, there needs to be a detailed specification setting out how the system is supposed to perform. So you need to lay that out in advance. Second, the system must be subject to regular testing and audit to ascertain how it is actually functioning. So essentially, you compare how it's actually functioning to the system specification, which tells you how it should be functioning. Thirdly, any errors or failures and any steps taken to correct them must be rigorously documented. So a complete error log needs to be kept, and measures must be in place to ensure that malfunctions are addressed. And finally, this needs to be an ongoing process, because any software or hardware upgrade risks introducing malfunctions. So essentially, you don't just do it once at the start and that's it. You have a reliable system. This needs to carry on going. And this is in line with the computer engineering understanding of reliability. It also must be borne in mind that operating rules and training manuals must be kept up to date, because how the system is used is an essential factor in its proper functioning. So, as Andrew indicated, when the Law Commission undertook its consultation prior to the adoption and enactment of the ETDA, the reliability indicators set out in the MLETR were not considered by technology companies to be difficult to satisfy, because what I have just described are best practices in quality assurance, which technology companies should be undertaking anyway. The advantage of having an ex-ante statutory reliability requirement is that the importance of undertaking them and documenting that they have been undertaken before and during system deployment is built into the law, which is intended to engender confidence in these new means of transacting. So Kay is going to talk to us about about the framework developed by the ICC DSI. This framework gives industry a methodology for documenting the measures they have taken to ensure reliability. So as I've already mentioned, it's interesting to note that if you examine the way that the judge defined robustness in the Horizon Issues decision forming part of the Alan Bates litigation, this aligns quite closely with the understanding of reliability that can be gleaned from the indicators set out in the MLETR and the ETDA.
Okay, thank you, Miriam. And Kay, I'd need to bring Kay in now. So Miriam touched on the standards that are presently available in the industry, and I think you have some sort of inside knowledge in relation to the ICC DGC standard. So could you tell us a bit about that? And are there any other standards that are on the horizon that we should be aware of?
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. Well, so in 2024, the ICC Digital Standards Initiative and the Digital Governance Council of Canada convened a working group of experts to create a reliable system assessment framework, which was subsequently launched in October that same year. So I served on this working group alongside other experts, and we created this framework that is based on a self-assessment effort for now. It's fairly extensive. The questions are contained on an Excel, but it is also the one standard identified by the International Group of P&I Clubs in their deemed approval requirement, although it may be that other measures may be developed in the future. As for how widely used this assessment framework is right now, I did see from a recent presentation by the ICC Digital Standards Initiative that as of November, 9 platform providers have filled out the detailed questionnaire and obtained an ICC DGC verification statement. It is worth noting that although the ICC DGC's original pro forma verification statement has wording indicating that the present assessment tool is an interim acknowledgement, there is not yet any further work done to formulate a successor assessment program. So this is what we have for now. On your question regarding other measures, indeed, there may be others. So here, as part of my work on supporting CMA-CGM's recent MOU with 4 EBL solution providers to explore trade trust for e-bills, I note that in the French decree announced in August 2025, it appears that one of the digital identity requirements specified in the EU's eIDAS regulations for regular audits by qualified assessors has been adopted by France to further refine the reliability requirement in its legislation, which adopted the MLETR. Whereas eIDAS requires an audit every 24 months with a report to an official supervisory body, the decree requires an audit for electronic trade document systems every 5 years, also by a qualified auditor, but without having to report to an overall supervisory body.
Okay, thank you, Kay. And I think this requirement for an auditor also resonates with the club rules, because in addition to a certificate from the ICC DGC, they'll also say that one of the ways that you can give them proof of reliability is to get an audit as well. So that seems to, the audit route seems to resonate, not just with the French decree, but thank you very much. So I think we'll go back to Miriam now to ask a question that's probably close to my heart. Miriam, so you go through all these ex ante requirements and in the development of the product, and you use best practices. So what if a reliability dispute actually arises? What can we expect to see?
Yes, in that case, 2 things may need to be shown in court. And bear in mind, this is a view of a non-practitioner academic researcher. So I'm happy to be called up on this. But from what I can see, I think 2 things may need to be shown in court. First, that the statutory reliability requirement has been fulfilled. And second, that the computer evidence relating to the specific transaction in dispute should be believed. So I guess those are the 2 questions that are going to need to be addressed in court. With regard to the first question, the action taken to assess, monitor, and document system performance against the relevant specification before and during the deployment of the system is going to greatly facilitate the process of proving that the statutory requirement has been met. And of course, in the process of doing this, providers will be complying with quality standards. For example, those adopted by the International Organization for Standardization. In regard to the second question, it would seem to be important to the MLETR and ETDA frameworks in that one of the gateway criteria that needs to be fulfilled is integrity of the document. So essentially, this is going to be part of proving the integrity of the document and also the transactional the transactional process that document went through. Now, in order to prove that the data on the system relating to the particular transaction should be believed, you may need to bring audit trails, produce audit trails before the court, and expert evidence regarding how to interpret the audit trails and the data on the system. So essentially, you need to show how the system functioned with respect to that particular transaction. Now, when it comes to evidentiary matters, there has been some discussion of the presumption of regularity. So this is a common law presumption that originally applied to operational technology, such as breathalyzers and traffic lights. Now, according to this presumption, it's a rebuttable presumption. This operational technology was presumed to be functioning correctly unless the contrary could be shown. So the burden of proving the burden of proof was shifted to the person alleging unreliability. When it reformed the law of evidence in the 1990s, the Law Commission expressed the view that this presumption could apply also to computer evidence. Since then, since the 1990s, computer systems have become a lot more complex. And if you look at information technology as compared to operational technology, bugs are much more common. Because of complex programming code used in information technology. So the great advantage of having an ex-ante reliability requirement, as we do in the ETDA, is that evidence of reliability must be collected on a regular basis and will be available for the purposes of assessing reliability in court should the need arise.
Okay, thank you very much, Miriam. So I think that brings us to the end of the reliability section. So I will just thank Miriam and Kay again for their answers to these questions and hand over to Kay Marie.
Thank you, Andrew. Despite long-standing digital alternatives, EBL adoption has lagged due to fragmentation across platforms. As a result, paper has largely remained dominant, preventing the industry from accessing an estimated 6.5 billion in annual direct savings and 40 billion in incremental trade flows. Interoperability is the capability of different systems and platforms to exchange and process information so that an EBL which is issued on one platform can be transferred, endorsed, and recognized on another platform without compromising its legal validity or functionality. The industry consensus is that there should be interoperability between platforms to maximize the benefits of electronic trading documents. Without interoperability, each platform is a closed system, and this means they cannot communicate with each other. As a result of this, all parties to a transaction, be it the shippers, carriers, or the banks, have to agree to be on the same platform and over time potentially have to join multiple platforms, agreeing to multiple sets of user terms. We understand that some industry players have observed that they have been involved in multiple pilots, but now is the time to really understand what it means if they were to digitize or digitalize entirely. Concerns around what is truly interoperable and what changes must be existing systems have held back adoption of innovations such as EBLs. And with interoperable EBLs, we will overcome that obstacle. It is well understood now that from a technical perspective, technical challenges around interoperability can be resolved. From a legal perspective, contractual terms and standards can be drafted to suit the system models. Some platforms are already developing baseline standard terms for interoperable systems, allowing for interoperability. These systems may be necessarily defined depending on the technical models being used for interoperability. There are various platform providers who have or are working towards providing the interoperation functionality. In late 2024, and early 2025, we saw early evidence of some of these preparations with IG-approved system providers such as ICE Digital Trade and IQAX, gaining further approval from the IG for newer versions of user terms permitting interoperations with other systems. The new terms quoted were permissive rather than prescriptive, and it appears that work has been ongoing. Interoperability reduces friction and lowers costs by avoiding complications. As a result, it will accelerate EBL transactions. It will expand the available market for customers of software providers as they are no longer limited to transacting with trading partners on the same platform. In such a way, it can act as a catalyst for wider EBL adoption. Furthermore, it will change parties' behavior. There would no longer be a need to corral others into using their preferred platform, thus fostering smoother commercial relationships. Today, we're going to discuss two different interoperability models which have been developed and the factors that should be taken into consideration when we talk about interoperability from a legal perspective. First, there is the model which incorporates a centralized hub or registry feature, and there is a second model which we will talk about, which is of a framework which takes a decentralized approach for each user to ensure interoperability. I will now invite our speaker, Kay, to provide a brief explanation of the differences between the two models that he sees in the market today.
Certainly. Thank you, Kimberly. Right. Okay, thank you. So before I start, I think I do have to say that these are two generalized models, and there can, at the implementation level, there can certainly be more nuances and further combinations that might be taken, right? So let me proceed. Okay, so you can see in front of you, we've got two models. There will be a type 1 and then subsequently a type 2. So to explain the type 1 model, we have three platforms/solutions, A, B, and C, as well as a registry that just specifies which is the platform that holds the operative EBL at any time. Oh, sorry, wrong button. Okay. So let us begin, as it always does, by the issuer issuing the EBL in his platform. A platform A, right? By specifying the required information, key among which is who has title control, but also the other relevant information like cargo description, weight, volume, etc. Now, when the title is endorsed onto the next stakeholder, who is on platform B, three things take place simultaneously. The title holder is updated to the new holder in platform B. The whole set of information is sent to platform B, and the registry is updated that it is now platform B that holds the operative EBL instead of platform A. Now, let's say it now needs to be endorsed onto a party in platform C. The same three things happen simultaneously. The title holder is updated to the new title holder in platform C. The whole set of information is sent to platform C, and the registry is updated that it is now platform C that holds the operative EBL instead of platform B. To finish our little journey, let's say the holder in platform C wishes to surrender the BL to the carrier and collect his cargo. So again, three things happen. The title holder is updated back to the carrier in platform A. The whole set of information is sent to platform A, and the registry is updated that it is now platform A that holds the operative EBL instead of platform C. Now, the more observant amongst you may notice that I have colored the title holder in green and the rest of the data of the BL in black. The reason I have done so is because on a BL, only the title holder is dynamic information, i.e. information that can change, while all the other information shouldn't. I will conveniently just call this other information BL data. So, under type 1, the title holders and BL data are successively held within each platform and transmitted to other platforms. And there is a registry that specifies which is the platform that holds the operative EBL at any particular time, thereby informing singularity and exclusive control between platforms. Okay, so now let's look at type 2. So here we have three platforms / solutions, X, Y, and Z, as well as a public blockchain. Now, again, it begins, as it always does, by the issuer issuing the EBL in his platform X by specifying the required information, key among which is who has title control, but also the data, the BL data like cargo description, weight, volume, etc. When the title is endorsed onto the next stakeholder who is on platform Y, two things happen. The BL data is wrapped up in a tamper-evident envelope and sent onto platform Y, and the title holder information is updated to that of the new holder in platform Y through updating that information on the blockchain. Now, let's say it now needs to be endorsed onto a party in platform Z. Two things happen again. The same tamper-evident envelope is sent onto platform Z, and the title holder information is updated to that of the new holder in platform Z through updating that information on the blockchain. To finish our little journey, let's say the holder in platform Z wishes to surrender the BL to the carrier and collect his cargo. Then only one thing has to happen. The title holder is updated back to the carrier in platform A, and the carrier can actually use the very same file he had initiated this whole journey with to confirm that the EBL has been surrendered to him and he now has back exclusive control. So, under type 2, the title holders are recorded on a blockchain that enforces singularity and exclusive control between title holders, even when they are in the same platform. And there is a tamper-evident envelope file that contains the static BL data that is sent between transaction parties. Back to you, Kimmery.
Thank you, Kay. I'd just like to stay with you. That was a very helpful explanation. I'd just like to ask, actually, why do we have these two different models?
Well, I think these two models demonstrate the difference between a centralization approach and a decentralization approach. In the former, control is centralized in intermediaries, whereas in the latter, it is all about putting the control in the hands of the users themselves. Case in point, under a decentralization approach, i.e. type 2, a user can manage his own blockchain wallet by virtue of retaining access to the wallet's private key. With this, he can easily switch platforms to use his wallet on another platform if it so supports it. This has the practical benefit. This has practical benefits of preventing platform lock-in, as well as a more robust business continuity planning capability. Indeed, the decentralization approach means that users can choose to continue to vest control in agents of their choice, but it is then their choice to make and even change, rather than having it foisted upon even those who have or can acquire the expertise to exercise their own control.
I see. And just to follow on with that, do these differences in the model impact on how the reliability standards are achieved?
I think the same required legal concepts of singularity, exclusive control, and integrity are being achieved, just in different ways. Type 1 depends on undertakings between the platforms, mostly expressed legally. Under Type 2, there is a stronger reliance on technology to enforce the standards across the wide ecosystem that the EBL travels.
Thank you. Sophie, if I could now trouble you to move on to the next slide. So for the purposes of today, we have already asked and Kay has answered the first 3 questions. And we'd like to now move on to ask Miriam the last question. Miriam, what are the legal implications of interoperability that you would like to highlight?
Thanks, Kimmery. Well, as Kay mentioned, it's very important for systems to be interoperable because in the absence of interoperability, users may become locked into systems that may no longer work for them. As Kay has just explained, in order to have interoperability, you need to have uniform standards. Some uniformity is needed not just in technical standards, but also in legal standards to ensure that the obligations and liabilities undertaken by parties, particularly the issuer of the document, are not affected by the move of the document between platforms. So whichever interoperability model is adopted, assurances that there will be no changes to the underlying legal position as a result of movement between platforms need to be built in. Now, these can be built in technologically or contractually or through a combination of both. But they must be built in to whichever interoperability model is adopted. The development of standards needs to be done thoughtfully because while we do need common standards to achieve interoperability, the establishment of standards that are such as to stymie innovation or block new entrants into the market should be avoided. So that's another consideration to build in when standards are being developed and adopted.
Thank you, Miriam. That's excellent. I'll now hand back to Archid.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the discussion. We still have a few minutes left in the session, and I was just going through the questions which are coming in. I think I'll start off by what seems to be quite a popular question, and that is, should reliability certification for electronic trade systems remain industry-led, or should government establish an official supervisory body to reduce uncertainty? Yeah, I think that's a relevant question. Uh, Maybe Mariam can start off with her views on this.
Thank you, Arkit. As the Law Commission said in its report on electronic trade documents, the danger with state-led reliability certification is that every state will have their own certification and assessment processes, which means that in order to function internationally, a system would have to obtain a large number of different state-based certifications. So this is the danger. It doesn't mean that states might not want to do it, but essentially, this is the reason why the Law Commission decided it wasn't the right direction for the UK.
Perfect. Thank you. Maybe Kay, do you have something to add to that?
I just,
Yeah.
quickly for Miriam, I just wondered whether that's, we're in with the Section 2.5 tests, which are fact-based, involves a fact-based inquiry, that the common lawyers are in a more comfortable zone than perhaps the civil lawyers. And do you think that there's going to be a tendency of the civil law jurisdictions to want to refine concepts of reliability more and are less happy with a sort of fact-based inquiry?
Well, essentially, we've only seen two countries so far introduce this idea of a state. Actually, it's only the Singapore legislation which basically contemplates a state-based certification process, and even then, if you do acquire that certification, that accreditation from the state-based process, it only creates a rebuttable presumption. It doesn't create an absolute presumption. The French model, as Kay explained, requires an independent audit. It's not a state. It's not a state accreditation process. It's basically showing a certificate from an independent auditor that you've been audited. And also, that is also a rebuttable presumption. So I guess we haven't seen a huge drive towards having state-based accreditations that create conclusive evidence of reliability. And if anything, the civil law jurisdictions that have legislated in this field, they've actually left things a bit more open. So if you look at the German legislation, for example, as I understand it, it is still quite open. I don't know if that answers your question, Andrew.
No, it probably does. It's probably too early to see where we come out with that. Sorry, I interrupted Archer your question to Kay.
No, thank you so much. Thanks, Andrew. Yes, Kay.
No, I guess I just wanted to come in and follow on with what Miriam said, which is really it is about making things easier for industry, not making things harder for industry. I mean, that's the whole point, right? We're trying to remove friction and not add friction, but it's got to be done for the right reasons. Back in 2021, when we were, when Singapore was doing its ETA, we did go out with a little small industry survey, and basically the industry opined that, told us that, look, the reason why they haven't, taken up e-bills isn't because there's a lack of this, accreditation stuff. There were other factors. So I think we should try to address the more market moving stuff first. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. We do have a couple of minutes. I may be able to bung in a follow-up question. And so we've mentioned the French degree, and we've seen the approach over there that requires an audit to establish reliability. And as I understand it, from China's decision to defer to its cyberspace authority and the transport ministry to set out the approved methods for assuring reliability. Does this in any way potentially undermine the aims of the MLETR? Maybe Mariam can start off and Kay can give us some views on this.
Sorry, Arkit, I'm not sure I understood the question.
So, given the two approaches that we have under the French decree, requiring the audit to establish reliability, and the China's decision to defer to its cyberspace authority for such things. So, does this align with what the aims and goals of MLETR are, or does it go on a different tangent over here?
Well, I guess it's very hard to answer questions with any certainty. However, I would say cybersecurity can be a very important aspect of reliability, and there are very detailed, specific standards on cybersecurity, which I would imagine an independent auditor would also be checking for when they audit a system. So they would be checking both proper functioning in line with the system specification and cybersecurity measures taken. I mean, these are also listed in Section 2, Paragraph 5 of the ETDA as one indicator of reliability. So I guess the reliability question, because it's intended to be technology neutral and to be adaptable to whatever the reliability standards of the day are, I think it will depend on what that state's general approach to cybersecurity questions involve. On a more general level. So I guess, in that sense, there will be there will be the need for states to, bring their own approach to these questions under that flexible reliability umbrella.
Thank you, Mariam. That was quite helpful. I see we are running out of time. We're just in time. Thank you all for joining us today. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to write to any of the WFW panelists and we will respond. Otherwise, have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.